Hey y'all, I just wanted to share with all of you guys a fairly recent purchase that I received. I've seen some of these on YouTube where the guy just opens the box and does so-called review when it's really just an impression of their gun. So I'm going to go ahead and just do one of my own, and this is for the SIG Sauer P229. Right there, P229 RM. R just means it's got a rail. M means it's compliant in my state. It's chambered in the 357 SIG. It's got a nitron slide finish. It's got night sights on it. It's a double action, single action gun. And date of manufacture is June 3rd, 2010. So it's fairly recent. And this is a brand new purchase for me. So here we go. Open the case. And inside we have, here we go, I think this is a warning for compliance in my state. A warning about the loaded chamber indicator, which I'll touch on later. An ad for lubricant. I don't know what that is. Yet another warning of compliance from my Attorney General. This is the manual. As you can see, it's for not just for one type of pistol in SIG's lineup, and this is the plastic bag that the gun came in. This is the lubricant, this little sample they give you. Unfortunately, it does not come with any cleaning kits inside the case, to my disappointment, unlike the Beretta 92 FS, which did. And unfortunately only came with 2 mags, one in the gun, one here. And, 6 is very expensive, so I was hoping I'd get more than just 2, but unfortunately that's all I got. So moving on to the pistol, this is the tag they wrap around the grip. This is quality control tag. The guy signs off on it. And this is just a plastic piece that put into the chamber to prevent the slide from locking, to let you know that there's nothing loaded, there's nothing inside the chamber. So I'm going to go ahead and take the gun out. And it's actually an interesting story. For my first pistol, I was actually considering getting the SIG P239, which is not that much different in terms of dimensions from the SIG P229 or the P228. But I didn't end up getting it just because the trigger guard on the SIG P239, it was curved. And for me personally, I like guns that are more, more butch, more masculine, gun like this. It doesn't have to be blocky, but I like guns like this instead of like the soft contour curve of the SIG P239, which just didn't do it for me. So if you're gonna get something like this, you might as well get something that you like looking at, or else you're just not gonna be comfortable with it. So so I didn't end up getting the SIG P239 for my first pistol, but here it is. As you can see, it's a very wonderful looking piece of gear. Just go over this with you guys really quickly. This is the accessory rails. You can see the top. We got the SIG night sights, and this is the loaded chamber indicator. So there's a round in the chamber. You can see the brass casing showing through. The slide serrations, also on the slide, unlike the pictures you see, unfortunately it's not all black. The slide is more of a charcoal gray. So even if you're not getting a two-tone configuration, it's still really a two-tone pistol, just because the frame, which is aluminum, I think this frame is made in Germany, the slide, stainless steel, is made in New Hampshire. The frame is black, but the slide is kind of like a charcoal gray. So it's two-toned, in that regard, if you think about it that way. But the serrations, I kind of like the older serrations on the SIG P228, just because it allows more grip. Here it's kind of smooth, so if your hands are sweaty or oily, if you try to grab it, you're not going to have as much of a grip on the slide. This is the short trigger. It's not the short. I don't think this is a short reset trigger. I think it's just a short trigger. Difference between the short trigger and normal trigger is that normal trigger, this part right here, it's not curved. It's more of it's less curved. There's more steel in this part of the trigger. So for the short trigger, it just looks like they just sanded away or grinded down that part of the normal trigger, and this allows you to get a much better hold on the trigger with your trigger finger. And this benefits people with smaller hands, or if you hold the pistol in a particular way. I mean, if you hold the pistol like this, it's much easier to get your whole finger around it. But if you hold a pistol like this, like I do, you know, your hand comes back this way, so your finger is not going to be extended that far. So this really helps in getting as much contact as possible onto the trigger for better control. And if you're wearing gloves, you know, it's even worse. So I mean, this really helps. So I really like this short trigger. Moving on, the grips. I really like the factory plastic grips. I don't have any problems with them. I know if you can get aftermarket wooden grips, but they tend to be wider, and I prefer my grips to be as thin as possible for more control, more wraparound with my hand. You can also get those aluminum grips, but they're very expensive, and they only decrease the width by just, you know, a hair. So it's not really worth it, in my opinion. This is a decocker. Pretty much everyone knows about this for any SIG. You know, instead of pulling the trigger and letting the hammer drop, you know, controlling it with your thumb, which is very risky, something you should probably never do. You just use the decocker, and that's what SIG advocates. So you just do that, and the hammer does not hit the firing pin. The hammer goes back in, not all the way. You can see there's still some space there, but it's not cocked anymore. So this is double action. And then this is single action with the hammer back, or if you pull the slide back, this will happen. The hammer will go back. So again, instead of doing this, pulling the trigger and letting the hammer drop, you just do the decocker, which is very handy when you got a round in the chamber and you're going ahead to holster the pistol. I'm really liking the angle of these levers here. You know, the slide catch and even the decocker. Just because, you know, unlike the Glock where it's flush against the body, it's angled, so it's much easier for you to activate. One thing that's different I noticed about the Glock or other guns is that you see how the grip is thicker, this part on the left side, so it takes a bit getting used to. It seems like it almost wants your thumb to just stay here, but when I shoot, I usually shoot like this. This is how I usually grip. So it takes a bit of getting used to, but it's no big deal. Magazine release, very solid, very nice. The magazine itself fits 40 Smith & Wesson or 357 SIG. The finish on it, you know, it's got this kind of feel like a thin film of oil, of lubricant. It's kind of like the CLPs, cleaner, lubricant, and protectants, kind of like those Ballistol, you know, products and whatnot people use. Is that you can't see it, but when you put your skin on it and you slide it across it, it's very smooth. And it feels like it's lubricated, but it doesn't collect any dust. So it's a very nice feel to the magazine. Also, fortunately, I lived in a low capacity state, so only 10 rounds. You can, by default, this comes to 12 rounds. I think for 9mm, I think it goes to 13 rounds. And I think because of the lowered capacity, the magazine butt plate, stick's base plate, goes into the magazine, so you got that indentation. Whereas I think if you have more, if you live in a state that's not mine, or New York or California or Hawaii or wherever, I think this may come out a little bit more. So the magazine's really nice, solid metal. You know, it feels good, and that's just one thing about the SIGs that I like, is that, you know, yes, it's heavier than a polymer gun, but you know, when you grab it, it just feels, you know, like a solid piece of kit. You know, it's a bit wider, yes, it's heavier, but it just feels so good in your hand when you hold it. I mean, it just feels like you don't want to put this thing down. You know, it's just that good. So I'm going to go ahead and do some more reviews, and I'll be back with some more in-depth coverage.